Okay, so before I Merovingian fall asleep, I brought these little the churches out, and yeah, they're so typical. Like when you're driving around France, they're there. You see them north to south, east to west. They all kind of look like this, don't they? In the smaller villages, especially. So they're just kind of regular old. Yeah, there's the local church. So they were building them way back when. That was really their helper. Had they not done the churches, they would probably not have had such a large, vast. Hey, we're king. They probably wouldn't have been able to say any of that. Would have been more like and of what region, and really shrinky dink situations. All right, so because chances are these priests, all they had as a king really is their pope, and that's not classed as a king, so they needed a king also. And yes, so now the kings have dissolved a lot of their lands and their regions, and they've lost it. Dagobert went to Scotland, and then he died. He ended up dying. Now, did it say how he died? I don't believe so. I think he just died of natural causes. But the fact he went there with his Scottish red hair, I just think that's amazing and funny, because maybe he did, become part of the Scottish landscape that we know today, of all the children. Maybe he did have children while he was up there. Okay, so next we have Clovis left 3 sons. This is 660 AD. Clotaire, Childeric, and III, the eldest of whom was proclaimed sole king, under the conduct of Queen Batilda, and of Embryon. I don't know why I'm so giggly lately. Don't ask. Maybe I have too much microphone in my ear and it makes me laugh. I don't know. I use this so I know that the microphone is on. The ear things. Okay, Embryon, mayor of the palace of Neustria, who was a man of address and courage, capable of great undertakings, but cruel and ambitious. He had the art, however, to conceal his vices, to which he was induced through the fear of displeasing Batilda, whose wise plans he ever seconded with cheerfulness and alacrity. The regency of that princess was distinguished by its mildness, prudence, justice, and virtue. The Gauls, without distinction of age or sex, paid a heavy poll tax, which either prevented them from marrying or else subjected them to the necessity of exposing or even felling their children. They now carried their complaints to the foot of the throne, and Batilda, moved by their supplications, remitted this onerous tribute, and redeemed all those whom the rigid exaction of it had reduced to a state of slavery. Nor was the less attentive to the interest of the Church. she displayed her zeal for religion in her endeavours to promote a reformation of manners, in the repression of intrigues for obtaining the honours of episcopacy, and in the extermination of simony. Austrasians, however, bore with impatience the yoke of the Neustrians. They demanded a king of their own, and the queen, in compliance with their request, appointed her second son to reign over them. Wilsavard, who created mayor of the palace and declared guardian to the young prince, whom Imnishilda obtained permission to accompany. In this condescension, Batilda displayed more goodness than policy, for Imnichilda was beloved, and Dagobert was still alive, so that the residence of big page flip, the residence of princess in a kingdom which belonged to her son might be attended with disagreeable consequences. But the virtuous mind, conscious of its own rectitude, is seldom open to suspicion. Childeric was received and crowned with every possible demonstration of joy, and tranquillity appeared to be established throughout the three kingdoms. 665. The virtuous regent was studiously bent on promoting the interests of religion, the welfare of the state, and the education of her son. Her court was filled with people, renowned for her wisdom and piety. But unfortunately, her partiality to bishops proved prejudicial to the church and injurious to her own reputation. She invited to the court, among others, 2 men equally celebrated for their mental endorsements, though not possessed of an equal portion of merit. One of them, the illustrious Leger, who was allied to the royal family, was prudent, pious, and learned. Endued with a suavity of manners that captivated every heart, and with a strictness of virtue that conciliated universal respect. Him the Queen appointed to the bishopric of Autun, and the sanctity of his life evinced the wisdom of her choice. The other was Sigibrand, Bishop of Paris, a prelate whose conduct had been hitherto, irreproachable, but whose vanity proved the cause of his destruction. This haughty favourite, in order to ensure a greater degree of consequence, suffered a wrong construction to be put on Batilda's kindness to him. The nobles, jealous of the credit he enjoyed, began to murmur, and at last put him to death. The assassins then hastened to the Queen and advised her to shut herself up in a monastery, as she had sighed after a life of solitude. Does it say sighed, really? Okay. as she had long, well, vied, it could be vied instead of side. It could be vied, but using an Fighed, after a life of solitude, because that makes sense. She was easily prevailed on to listen to their advice, and retired to the Abbey of Chelles, which she had founded. She there passed the remainder of her life in the exercise of every virtue. She was afterwards canonized in 668, and yes, we were spared 666 AD. Bathilda's, thank goodness, oh my gosh, I can't handle the 666 AD right now. Bathilda's, well, we're going to call this succession from the regency, left the kingdom a prey to the unbridled licentiousness of the mayor of the palace. Embrun possessed the sovereign authority, now showed himself in his true character, a monster of avarice, cruelty, perfidy, and pride. His administration was one continued scene of injustice, tyranny, outrage, and oppression. If a man was rich, powerful, or virtuous, he was exposed to become the victim of his avidity, ambition, or malice. Detested by all men of integrity, he banished the nobles from court, and forbade them to appear there without an express, they had to have an express invitation from him. Things were in this dreadful situation when Clotaire died, in the 20th year of his age, and the 15th of his reign. He left no children. It is not even known whether he was married. Some pretend that he was interred in the church belonging to the Abbey of Chelles, others at Saint-Denis. So they don't know if he's at Saint-Denis or at Chelles. The ambitious Embrun, hated by all the world, could not hope to preserve his place. If the usual forms were observed in the election of a mayor of the palace. Influenced by this consideration, without summoning the nobles of the kingdom to deliberate on the matter, he raised Thierry to the throne, and had him proclaimed King of Burgundy and Nuestra. This exertion of power astonished the nobles, though it did not give them any kind of aversion to their new monarch. They were even on the road for the purpose of paying their respects and doing homage to him, when they received a renewal of the prohibition to appear at court without permission. Enraged at an insult so pointed and gross, they immediately assembled and flew to arms. The crown was unanimously transferred to Childeric, who hastened to join them at the head of the powerful army. The conspiracy was so general and so sudden that Embrun, forsaken by everybody, had but just time to escape the fury of the nobles by taking refuge in a church. His life was spared, but his possessions were all confiscated, and he was constrained to pass the remainder of his life in the convent of Luxiel. Thierry experienced a similar treatment. They cut off his hair, though without any orders from Childeric, who expressed great compassion for him. He even told him that he was ready to grant whatever he could desire. "I ask nothing," replied Thierry. "I have been unjustly dethroned, and I trust that heaven will revenge my cause." He retired to the Abbey of Saint-Denis, not to turn monk, but to let his hair grow. He had not quite completed the first year of his reign. So this time frame is a lot about letting the hair grow, or letting the hair, well, it's almost like being banished. Once the hair is cut, off to the church you go. You've got to live in monastery the rest of your life or something. Okay, next I have Childeric II. Do I have time? Yes, I have time. It's only 3 pages. The commencement of this reign was devoted to acts of gratitude and to the support of the laws. Childeric made a point of rewarding such of the nobles as had contributed to his elation, and as Laguerre, Bishop of Autun, had been greatly instrumental in effecting this revolution. He entrusted him with the administration of affairs and declared him his principal minister. The great credit which was prelate enjoyed with his sovereign has made some writers believe that he was created mayor of the palace of Neustria and Burgundy, but they did not reflect that an office which gave the command of armies and the power of judging in matters of life and death was incompatible with the character of a priest and a prelate. However that may be, to the prudent counsels of this great man was the king indebted for the reformation of numerous abuses that had crept into the state. It was ordained that judges should be guided in their decisions by the ancient laws and customs of every province. One law in particular was made in AD 670, which might have redeemed the kings from a state to subjection. They had possessed sufficient firmness to enforce it. It enacted that no children should succeed their fathers in any of the great offices of state, but all these flattering symptoms of a wife and a virtuous reign speedily vanished. The nobles, seeing that this reformation would effect a diminution of their own enormous power, an undue consequence, adopted every means they could devise for corrupting the mind of their sovereign. Having acquired a perfect ascendancy over him, they led him into every kind of excess. Debauchery soon gave way to indolence, and indolence to cruelty. He suffered all those ordinances which he had so properly renewed to be violated with impunity, and authorized a contempt of the laws by his own example. In contracting an incestuous marriage with his cousin German, in vain were the solicitations and remonstrances of his minister exerted to induce him to the pursuit of a different course of life. His representations, though at first they were listened to with some degree of attention, soon became insupportable. It's like difference, isn't it? Insupportable. And it was resolved to embrace the first opportunity that should occur for effecting his ruin. So the nobles are kind of upset because they are losing the power they had over their little church scene and the king and all of this. Okay, so we're at 671. It was customary in ancient times for bishops to invite their sovereigns to celebrate the festival of Easter in their cathedrals. Leger requested Childeric to do him that honour, and the king, still retaining some degree of respect for him, accepted his invitation, and repaired to Autun. He there found Hector, patrician or governor of Marseille, who had a favour to ask of him. That nobleman, whose merit was equal to his birth, was intimate with the minister, and knowing the credit he enjoyed with his sovereign, had frequently conferred with him on the subject of his present application. It was insinuated, however, to the king that there was some mystery in this interview, and that the two friends had formed a design to interrupt the tranquillity of the state. Thus prejudiced against the prelate, instead of going to the cathedral on the night of Easter Sunday, which the early Christians always passed in prayer, he repaired to the church of Saint Symphorian, where he received the sacrament from the hands of Bishop Praejectus. The next morning, after a grand repast, he went almost intoxicated to the cathedral, swearing and blaspheming and threatening Leger in the most indecent manner. From thence he repaired to the episcopal palace, where the bishop joined him as soon as he had said Mass. So the bishop joined him after he said Mass. Childeric loaded him with reproaches and insults, and Leger, finding from his conduct that his ruin was inevitable, he remained any longer at Autun, left the city with his friend Hector, but they were very speedily pursued. Hector, after a vigorous defence, was killed, and Leger was brought back to the king, who sent him into confinement at the monastery of Luxeuil. There the prelate met with Ebrun, the deposed mayor of the palace, who earnestly besought his friendship. 673 AD. Childeric, being now deprived of the advice of his minister, fell into the extremes of vice, and finally became an object of universal contempt. A nobleman named Baudillon, venturing to represent to him the danger that would arise from an oppressive import that he was on the point of establishing, the king ordered, oh my gosh, he's going to raise taxes, ordered him to be tied to a post. Oh no. And had him severely flogged. The nobles, enraged at such an insult to the man of rank, conspired against his life. Childeric was then with the royal family at the seat of the forest of Laconia, supposed to be the forest of Livry, near Chelles. Yeah, supposed. It was supposed to be that one. It wasn't. Thither the conspirators repaired, and forcing his palace, massacred him, with his queen Hilda, who was pregnant, and their son Dagobert, an infant. So yeah, it was all about the raising of taxes. What? Okay, another son. Yeah, he was flogged for saying such. That he was against it, that one man. Anyway, named Daniel, here we are with Daniel, had the good fortune to escape, and afterwards reigned under the title of Childeric III. Childeric was, that's different, Childeric was in the 23rd year of his age, and the length of his reign is not precisely known, but the most probable opinion seems to be that he reigned 19 years. This prince was destitute both of courage and conduct. He neither possessed sufficient knowledge to govern a great kingdom, nor sufficient discernment to appreciate and pursue the wise counsels of a prudent and virtuous minister. Oh my gosh, where am I? Virtuous minister. He was not interred at the St. Peter's at Rouen, as the author of the Life of Saint Ouen affirms, but at the Abbey of Saint Vincent, now Saint-Germain-des-Prés. We are told by some writers that Childeric, overcome by the prayers of Imnishilda, whom he always esteemed, allowed her to recall Dagobert, to whom he ceded a part of Austrasia. Others assert that this prudent princess took advantage of the interregnum which ensued on the death of Childeric to win over the Austrasians, by whom she was tenderly beloved. Beloved, I don't know why I split that one, tenderly beloved, and to prevail on them to proclaim her son king. Be that as it may, it appears certain from a variety of circumstances that this young prince, oh my gosh, this is a biggie, reascended, oh it was easy after all, reascended the throne. We don't know, do I have the age? We're not sure. Reascended the throne from whence he had been unjustly deposed, and reigned several years. Okay, so I think he was the 23-year-old one. Okay, so now we have Childeric and... oh, that one was very confusing. Possibly best to look at like a genealogy map during it. Anyway, that's enough for tonight, and here's my... I will show you. I do have this. Hello, my little... and oddly, you're not going to believe this. Tonight, it has a little red, like sash, and I was talking all this about the red. You know, they have the red ponytail things on their helmets from the horses, and then I'm looking over here, and the red sash is missing. I am like, what is going on? I swear there's like some curse from way back then maybe the pagans made a curse on me or something. I don't know. Possibly because of this big switch into Christianity, they're still pissed off. Very much so. Thank you.